Hello, everybody. It's Donna Cravata, and we're back again for another Real 50 Over 50 interview. And today we have Julie Wignall. She's received international acclaim for her trailblazing accomplishments in environmental practices, animal care, and leadership, working with Mirage Resorts, a Fortune 500 company. Her unconventional career path has given her firsthand experience working with innovators in national politics, conservation, international business, television, and the arts. She believes in the power of individuals to create meaningful change and coined the term fireflies to describe those unconventional changemakers who break barriers and illuminate new possibilities. Her multi-award winning book, The Extraordinary Power of Fireflies, shares inspiring stories of those who dare to make a difference. As a coach, mentor, workshop leader, and speaker, she wants to help fireflies everywhere shine brighter. Welcome, Julie.
Thank you so much, Donna. It's really great to be here.
I'm excited to talk to you today. So, exactly what is a firefly? Tell us.
I define a firefly as someone who sees beyond what is. They see beyond the reality to say this is what's needed, and then they take action to create a better future. And each one of those, just by taking that action, they're changing the world in a very, very unique way. And sometimes that's on a global scale, sometimes it's within a career. But you know something, the person who says, I need to stay home to be a caretaker,
Mhm.
doing that with intention and thinking about it, that also changes the world. And then I tell people, if you can't even do that, you start by changing yourself, because
Yeah.
changing yourself ultimately changes the world. But it's taking action. It's, stop sitting on the sidelines and hoping and dreaming and wishing, or waiting. We wait for permission. We
Mhm.
wait for someone to say, oh, here's what you can do. And it's like, no, we need to create that so that we are taking our power back.
Yeah. And how did you come upon this through, actually, the question that I really want to ask is how did all of your unconventional parts come together and form this in your third act?
Ah, I think it's been finally stepping into my own light to say this is what I've been doing my whole life, but I never stopped to think about it. And we
Mhm.
always see, I think, things. It's easier to see things in other people than in ourselves. And I realized it's like, working with change makers, working with thought leaders, what do all of these people have in common?
Mhm.
And the truth is, what they all have in common is they didn't really follow the rules,
Mhm.
and they did things unconventionally. I can't begin to tell you the number of CEOs that I've worked with that never got a college degree, people who are doing things in fields that they never studied for. I am married to an Emmy award winning television producer who never studied television. He studied graphic art and design.
Mhm.
But filming was his passion, and went ahead and did that. And it's like, you know what? And people, because we always say, well, we wait, I'm not prepared for this. I don't have the right credentials. I don't have the right background. I don't have the right experience. If you have the passion to do something, that's going to be what's going to propel you forward. And I noticed that all of these other people were kind of creating their own pathway to move forward. And I stopped and I realized, that's kind of what I'd done my whole life. And now it's time to teach other people how to do
Mhm.
it, which is one of the reasons I moved from and pivoted from consulting. When you hire a consultant comes in and tells you what's working, what's not working, and you can listen, you can't listen, but then you need to bring them in again and again and again. A coach comes in and says, I'm going to give you information to help you soar and to get you aligned so that you start learning how to do this yourself.
Yeah.
And empowering people is just so much fun. And I've actually moved from doing a lot of one-on-one to doing group coaching, which is an amazing experience, because when you create a safe space and a place for people to get that kind of inspiration encouragement, magic starts happening. And that was something in terms of pulling everything together to say, it's not about me and what I can do now. I need to be sharing this now so that people can do this too. And it's that, we hear a lot of the, oh, like attracts like, but if you think about it, you walk into an office or you're sitting at a lunch and it's been after a long weekend and you had a terrible, terrible trip. You went away for the weekend. This went wrong. This went wrong. So you bring this up and you share this with a table of people. And what happens? Everybody starts sharing their worst stories. Oh, that happened to you. You should hear what happened to me.
Yeah.
And turn that around and have the person who said, I just spent the most amazing weekend. And all of these fabulous things happened on this trip. And all of a sudden, everybody's feeding into that energy and going, oh, this place is wonderful too. And we're sharing these good experiences. And when you do this within a group and people have these desires of what they want to do, you start putting yourself into a position of seeing things differently, opening your eyes to saying there are other ways to accomplish what you want to accomplish. There are other paths. And that's where magic starts to happen. I've worked with people who said, oh, I've got a book and I'd love to see it made into a play. And I never said that to anybody. I've just kept it quiet. Well, all of a sudden, by speaking it out, this particular author now has a play in conjunction with her book. And it's like things start falling into place. Oh, I happen to know a director. Oh, it turns out that director just retired and has time to just focus on your play. Amazing things begin to happen that starts putting together the pieces to propel people forward. And when that happens, to me, that's like one of the most exciting things for me to experience, is watching to say, yes, this really works. And you're really like on your way to doing all the things that you want to do.
So when you were kind of, pulling together all of your connectors and realizing that there was something that you were doing that you didn't realize that you were actually doing, what was the thing that could have held you back?
Things that I'm still learning, because I don't care what age we're still learning. I think what holds most of us back all the way through is fear. Fear that we're not good enough, fear that we're not deserving, we're not worthy. And I think in terms of women, honestly, that it's even bigger with that. And I also think about it. I come from a generation, and you understand this, where that's how I was trained. You want to make it in this world, you have to be twice as smart as any man. You have to work twice as hard, and you have to put up with all
Everything.
kinds of things. And yeah. And you know what? I've learned a lot, and in terms of business and working forward. But today, that's why I love working in terms of multi-generations, because then you have women who are younger who go, oh, not on my watch. Why are you putting up with this? And there's still little things that I'll have people call me out on, going, why did you let that guy say whatever or do whatever? And it's like, you know what? Because I wasn't aware, because it didn't click, and we're all still learning. But I love that, because I feel like there's a lot of wisdom to share with younger generations. And I think that younger generations have a lot of insight and a different take on the world to share with us, which ends up really being mutual growth.
Well, we were the generation that broke a lot of that.
Yeah.
Like, I see it with my son. My son is 23 now, but when he got his first job, he was working at Home Goods, after school a couple of days a week. He was like 16 years old. And, they gave him his schedule. And he went in and he goes, I'm only available on Wednesdays from 4 to 7. And I was like, you're going to get fired before you even start. And he goes, okay. So they said, okay. And then he said, I don't like being a cashier. I only want to work in rugs. So they put him in rugs. So he was there.
Isn't that wonderful? I mean, there's a
Constantly.
lot to learn from that. And, part of what I work on now too is to say we have to define and redefine things. And one of the things that's come to my attention that I've been working with people on in recent months is the concept of being nice.
Mhm.
Women were brought up with, well, you have to be nice. And like you said, you can't put anybody out and say to them, this is the only time you can work, or you can't state your desire that says, no, I really would like to work in rugs. And it's not okay for us to say, I happen to be really good at blank, because, oh, then you're just showing off. And we have this concept of nice that means that we roll over
Yeah,
backwards for everyone. And I'll still catch myself double
yeah.
booking things, and I'll stop and I'll say no. And I think about this 20 years ago, I would have just continued to run ragged
Well,
over
you didn't
double and
even stop
triple
to think
bookings.
about it.
Right,
It was
because I don't want
automatic.
to ask anybody else to change
Yeah,
their schedule for me.
it was
And
automatic.
yes, and now it's realizing, wait a minute, I have to redefine nice, because it's being nice to me and making sure that there's enough space in between, but also it's nicer to whomever I'm working with to say, I want to just focus on you right now, one on one, and not be thinking about how am I going to get to the next appointment and running things back and forth. But we do a lot of things out of nice
And
that,
I think nice is the problem, and we need to focus on kind,
thank you. Yes. Yes. And
because
in
there's a
doing
difference.
that, and that also means being kind to ourselves.
Mhm,
And I've done exercises with clients where it's like, okay, list for me all the things that you think make a really, really terrific friend. What does that kindness even mean to you? And, oh, I would be supportive and inspiring. And when they felt that, they couldn't move forward, I would be there to say, no, you're going to keep going. And I'd stop at the end and say, okay, now go back through that list. And how many of those things do you do for yourself? Because
mm,
then we turn around, we self sabotage, we go, no, this is never going to work. And it's like, you kind of got to be a lot of times your own cheerleader. And it starts with really being kind to you.
and you set the mood, because
Right.
if you're kind to yourself, other people will pick up on that
Right.
and recognize it as what what your bare minimum is. You're not
Yeah.
gonna accept less than that.
No, no. And I
Amazing
think
what we
that's
do to
just,
ourselves.
it's hugely important. And it's funny. Well, my area of real specialization is strategy, and that's that unconventional. Or you think that you have to go from A to B to C to D. Oh, I'm going to show you how you can go from A a little bit over here, but it's still going to get you where you want to
Mhm.
go without maybe the competition, without the stress, with different ways. Um, that are going to be fun and exciting. And I have a place in terms of, personal strategy. What are your personal goals? Oh, that doesn't have anything to do with anything. I need this job. I
Mhm.
need to move forward in my job. I'm trying to create an organization, a business, or whatever. Personal doesn't have anything to do with it. And I'll stop and I go, personal has everything to do with it. I can't tell you, Donna, how often I work with women who are like, I need to make money and I need to make more money. And it's like, let's sit down and talk about, how you see the world a little bit. And what'll come out is people who are rich are horrible people. They're
Mhm.
evil. So it's like, if that's your mindset and that's what your subconscious is feeling, well, your subconscious is going to fight you all the way down the
Mhm.
line. It's going to say, no, no, I don't want you to make money, because then you're going to be
Yeah,
one of
it's protecting
these,
you.
yeah, you're going to be one of these evil, terrible people. And so you got to kind of shift that to say, it's not money that's evil, it's people
Yeah.
will do bad things, people will be greedy, not money. Money is just an exchange, but it brings forward the importance of our constantly learning, growing, and doing deep dives on ourselves to
Mhm.
understand how are we self-sabotaging
Yeah.
ourselves, and being accountable in terms of moving forward. Because once you really get in alignment within yourself, you know what it is that you want, and you feel good with it, and you know what your triggers are. And this doesn't mean that you're perfect. I always say fireflies strive for growth, not perfection. We all make mistakes, and we're all still growing. If not, why are we here? But to have that increased awareness of ourselves, and once we become in alignment, it really starts attracting different people. It's like, we've all had that
Mhm.
experience of walking in the room and you go, there's a person sitting on a couch on the other side of the room. That's somebody I really want to talk to. Why? How do you know this? No, that's somebody who's in alignment,
Mhm.
who is, their energy is just resonating with you.
And that alignment is the glow of the firefly, right?
That's exactly right. And scientifically, we know that people glow. We actually really do glow. And that's the concept of the firefly, that we all have a light inside of us, and we need to be shining it. We need to be shining it brighter because the world needs it. One of the things I continually hammer into everybody is the world is waiting. The world is waiting for you. And to
Mm.
stand up in whatever you're doing, but to do it bigger. And with the people who say, oh, but your energy's too big and your light's too much, then I tell people, hand out sunglasses.
Yeah.
If my light is too bright for you, you can put these on, but I'm not dimming my light for anybody.
Yeah, it's amazing, and it's amazing when you feel that alignment. Can you share, like, when you work with people and even within yourself, like, what is that, process of when it all comes together,
The
and what
people
happens?
get different aha moments at different times. First of all, I think that we need to understand that, I come from a long history of studying Jungian psychology. And one of my favorite sayings that Carl Jung had was, if the path before you is clear, you're probably on someone else's.
Mm.
And so the concept is getting comfortable with the discomfort
Yeah.
of not knowing. But it's really, I go through a whole series of, we need to take the time to go, for example, what makes you happy? Do
Mm.
you really know what makes you happy? If I gave, I'll say this, if I gave you $1 million, you're going to spend it on cars or houses or travel, or what's important to you? What makes, and you go, no, I really don't care about those things. Okay, so now let's talk about what you care about. What makes you happy? I once worked with a group of 15-year-old boys that were in a school for troublemakers because their families didn't know what to do with them. And they all carried a chip on their shoulder. And after 2 days, that's what I asked them. If I were your fairy godmother, I could show up and say, anything that you want, what makes you happy? They stared at me, Donna, with blank faces. And one of the kids said to me, no one has ever asked me that before. And I'm expecting them to come back and tell me that they wanted to be rap stars and billionaires and whatever. And they took the time to think about it. And they came back, and it started with one of the kids came up and said, you know what makes me happy is on Sunday mornings at home, my dad and I get up and we make pancakes for the family. That makes me happy. Another kid comes up and says, I love taking walks in the woods with my dog. And I'm listening to these kids, and you start realizing what makes us happy
Mm.
are the moments, are people, not things, their experiences, their moments. And when we know that, we look to create more. And when we create more that makes us happy, we're happier, and we create even more happiness and more happiness and more happiness. So it's knowing what makes you happy. It's knowing what you feel gives your life meaning. And I usually use those terms instead of saying, what is your purpose? Because it's allowed to change.
Yeah.
And you don't have to stay on one thing. And it's like people go, I don't know what my life's purpose is, and I'm afraid to commit. And it's like, you know what? You're allowed to change. So let's just talk about what's going to give your life meaning. And when that stops giving your life meaning, we're going to pivot and you're going to go for something else. And I think the other thing in terms of starting with that foundation becomes knowing What is your code of values?
Mm.
What do you stand for? Because, we're creating leaders and thought leaders and change makers. And to be a leader, you need to instill, well, inspiration, but you have to instill trust in other people, where people trust you, and you do that by building up this code of values. We all know those people. You go, this has happened. I know how this person is going to react,
Hmm.
because they're going to react, with kindness or integrity or transparency. Of course, they're going to tell us because they're always transparent. To understand what that is, because when we're not clear on what's going on, that's where we end up in really bad situations, with whether it's business or just working, or with organizations. We go, oh, how did I let myself get tied into here?
Yeah.
When you've got that code of values, that's setting your boundaries to
Yes.
say no. I have to be honest. That's part of my code of values, and you're asking me to lie, and I can't do this. um
As Brene says, clear is kind.
yeah. And then for me, I work with strategy. I call them strategic action plans. Donna, I spent years doing consulting with different companies that wanted, every year we have to come up with our strategic action plan. And I always found it amazing. I think somebody did some research where it was like 90% of companies don't even really know what their mission statement is. A lot of them have a code of values, but they can't tell you what it is. That's
No,
like,
they're just words. They're words.
yes.
They're not. Yeah. No.
We need to get back to that and define it. And how are you sharing that with the public? But they'd have me come in. They always paid good money to do this. Is our strategic
Mhm.
plan for the year. And you come up with this huge document that would
Nobody
sit on
looks
a
at.
shelf. Nobody would look at. Nobody did anything. And it's on a shelf, and it's like, this is crazy.
No.
So I work with what I call strategic action plans, because you
Mhm.
say, this is the path that I'm taking. And when that doesn't work, you want to be able to shift your sails and say, okay, we tried that. Door number 2 is not opening, but there's a window. Let's, stop and take a breath and go, okay, let's try through the window. And it's that pivoting and that flexibility that keeps
Everything moves so fast. There's no way that you can set this 200-page document into a plan that's going to be relevant for more
you.
than
Yeah.
10 minutes, you know? You just
So
need to, yeah, and being rooted into those foundational parts of who you are as an individual or an organization, that now becomes the compass through
right.
which everything else operates through.
Right. So I now take it down to one page.
Yeah, that's all it needs to be.
What? Thank you. Because we as a society, we're really good as a culture of, overcomplicating everything.
Yeah.
And for me, coming from a background that also, includes work in politics and in science, that the joke was, the thicker the book that you gave, that meant it was better. The big
Yes.
one.
I did 25 years in law firms. I get it.
Yeah. And it's like, no, this is also called walking the walk. If we're going to talk the talk, you got to walk the walk. One page. Let's keep it simple, and let's make it happen. And,
Mhm.
let's pivot. Let's find different ways to do this. But part of this is, in terms of Firefly, it's taking that action to create that better reality.
Well, you
And
can take action with one page.
exactly. And that it should be that simple. And, and part of my code of values, as I say, what is the type of world that I want to live in? I want to live in the type of world where I can be honest, where we don't have to play these games and say, oh, everything is wonderful with me, when it's not. Or to be able to say, I just went through this huge event and it was a total failure. Um, and now I'm figuring out what the takeaways are from that and how to pivot and go forward. Because when we're honest and open like that, it gives everybody else that permission to be
Mhm.
honest and open back in return. And that's like, you know what? I want to live in a world where we all feel more comfortable being authentic.
Yeah, even if they're just doing it with themselves.
Yes.
The process of graduating from being honest with yourself to being honest with others is a process.
It, it is. And, those are things that we work on, and we work
Yeah,
on every day. But when other people see us working
yeah.
on them,
It's well, there's evidence that you did it and you lived.
yes. Yes, and when you talk about at this point in life, this is not a time where you sit down and say, "Oh, I've got it all together, and I have all the answers to everything." No, I've learned a lot in terms of experience, and I'm happy to share that. But I'm a human being, so I'm still growing. We're all still growing, and I don't ever want to stop.
No, what I'm enjoying so much between these interviews and the clients that I have the privilege to work with, because they're all kind of in this stage of, figuring out what that third act is that they're so open and, so willing to, take the parts of whatever they've done over the last 40 years that are meaningful to them and let go of what they no longer need and then seek where the gaps are. Like what
Yeah.
needs to be replaced? What needs to go there? What could make this better? What could enhance what I'm really good at? And it's just so interesting and fulfilling to watch and be part of.
I agree. And to me, when we incorporate this amongst different generations,
Mhm.
we become unstoppable.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, and I always tell people in terms of projects, I love a minimum of 4 generations. I need someone who's almost in their 70s, who's remembering the importance of play all over again, going, life is too short. We have to have a good time. And
Mhm.
then you need someone, their 50s, 60s, that's, opening up to a whole different world. But we need somebody in their 30s and 40s going, but I've got to prove myself. I've
Yeah,
got
but
to do
that's the
this.
engine.
Yes. And but you need to take it down to the teenager who says, I see something differently. Back to the 10-year-old that says, I need to play. I'm bored. Are we
Yeah,
done with this?
yeah. The 10-year-old that hasn't been laden with life yet.
Yes. But and you know what? One of my things with adults is we forget to play.
Mhm.
And that's important. And we get to a point where you take somebody in their 30s or 40s and you say, okay, I'm going to have you play now. And I'm going to have you build a sandcastle. Okay, well, once they do it, they have to keep it there. You take a 10-year-old, that 10-year-old's going to go up to that sandcastle. And after they've spent hours creating this whole thing, they're going to kick it down
Take it down, yeah.
because it's fun. And that 30, 40, 50-year-old is going to go, oh my gosh, why did you do that? You spent all of these hours. You need to keep it. Why? Because that's the concept of play.
Mm,
That was the play, was creating it. It doesn't matter if we're kicking it down, if we're destroying it. It doesn't have to be a keepsake that's going to be there forever and ever. That's something that we remember in our hearts and our minds, but
mhm.
it's just a play for the sake of playing. And I think that's huge.
Yeah. Well, on that note, we hit 30 minutes.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I like to wrap up these interviews with asking for a wisdom bomb, even though you've dropped about 100. Just something small and actionable that people could take with them and, have a better day.
I love this. My biggest statement to anybody out there is again, it's time to stop standing on the sidelines with your wishes and your dreams and your hopes, and it's time to jump on what I call the firefly path. And that as soon as you do that and you start shining your light brighter, not only is the world waiting for you to do that, but you're giving permission for others to follow suit and follow their dreams and hopes and wishes.
I love that. I love that. Connect with Julie. She's on our Real 50 Over 50 website, and her website is extraordinaryfireflies.com. Read her book, it's amazing. Watch what she's doing in the world because she's doing some big stuff. And if you're watching on the replay, if you got questions, comments, ideas, tag us in the comments and we will come back and keep the conversation going. And remember to come back next Wednesday at noon Eastern because we've got incredible women booked for interviews all the way into November. So we've got lots more coming. Thank you, Julie. Thank you for spending some time and sharing
Thank you.
your glow.
Thank you so much. This has been great.
Yeah, this is fun. And we will be back with more. Thank you. Have a great Wednesday, everyone.